I used to go to local schools for like show and tells, teaching kids about scuba diving, the equipment that we used, and introducing them to the underwater world. And whenever you asked if there were any questions, then I could happily bet all of my money that one of them, or at least one of them, would ask if I've ever been in a shipwreck. And that makes a lot of sense. Scuba diving is all about exploration, and shipwrecks are one of the only man-made structures under the water that adds a real unique environment for us to explore. But it's not really somewhere you should just, head straight into as soon as you get your license. Hi, all of you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine channel, your favorite place for the latest scuba diving news and gear reviews. Today's video is sponsored by the beautiful 𝐸𝐻𝐾𝐽 Dive Resort, which is a diving resort specifically made by divers for divers, so they understand exactly what we need on a diving holiday as far as like equipment and facilities, and they've also added some luxury stuff as well. I did a video on their resort and another video on their liveaboard that will be up here. If you want to check out 𝐸𝐻𝐾𝐽, just click on that link. But yeah, shipwrecks are just awesome to experience. However, they also come with some pitfalls that must be recognized to dive them safely, both inside the wreck and actually diving outside as well. It's an old industry joke that many specialties only really exist to make money. But just like underwater caves, shipwrecks can be very dangerous places to dive around, especially inside. And whilst this video will cover things to look for and what to be careful of, it of course does not count as official training, which is what you do need if you want to explore shipwrecks safely. Wrecks can have entanglement hazards, they're silty environments, and of course overhead restrictions, all of which can and will trap you underwater on a limited air supply, so it's not a fun place to be. On a wreck course, you will learn about surveying a wreck, line laying, navigation, emergency procedures, and of course buoyancy control, and how to just do everything safely. Just because you're not entering a shipwreck doesn't mean that it isn't dangerous, so sign up for a proper official course and they will teach you about some of the lesser known dangers that you may not have thought of, and of course how to dive near shipwrecks more safely. Know the history, the layout and the structure of the wreck by doing some research beforehand. Understanding the ship's design helps with navigation, and it just overall enhances your experience because you kind of know what you're looking at. You'll appreciate the wreck more if you know its backstory, and you can of course be more respectful if you're diving a wreck where people have lost their lives. Remember that many shipwrecks have claimed lives due to wars and accidents, and you of course need to be respectful of their grave sites. There can also be areas that are dangerous due to structural weakening over the years underwater that you need to avoid. You don't want to swim into an area and then you're the unlucky diver that just happens to disturb something that crushes you. So find out as much as you can about the shipwreck, and that can help you out in more ways than one. Whenever you dive in an overhead environment, it's important that you embrace your inner Hansel and Gretel to find your way back out. It's very easy to get disoriented inside of a shipwreck, especially in silty conditions or dark conditions. Bear in mind, shipwrecks rarely sink perfectly upright, so it's not unusual for everything to be at an angle or completely sideways, which can be very disorienting, with like carpets on the walls, hatches on the ceiling. It is just all over the place, and all of that like awkward angles, if it's always at a 30-degree angle, it just makes diving more challenging. And just like any dive environments, silt often settles and can be stirred up, which can reduce visibility to zero. Only unlike open water, you can't just ascend upwards to get out of it, get back to the surface. You'll bump your head on the ceiling. You need to find your way out and away from the wreck first, and the safest way to do that is to use a guideline that you can feel and trace your way back to open water. But of course you need to be taught how to do that properly first. The water inside a shipwreck is usually fairly still because it's protecting you from any kind of water movement. So any silt will just settle on literally any surface, even the walls and the ceiling. Every movement that you make in a shipwreck causes ripples in the water, and even a light fin kick can just stir up some silt and just reduce visibility to zero. Hatches and passageways are usually quite tight on ships anyway, so there isn't a lot of breathing space at the best of times. So keep your arms in and make sure that your gear is neat and tidy and close to your body. No flappy hoses or like dangling items to get caught on something. Also try and keep your fins quite close to your body and embrace like small flutters and frog kicks that have minimal effect on the water. And whilst most divers are just looking downwards on a dive, try to look up every now and then, just to make sure that you're not going to bump into something that's dangling down from the ceiling that you haven't noticed. And remember that bubbles that you breathe can actually dislodge things on the ceiling above you. You obviously need to breathe, but just be prepared for something to rain down on you if it's not a frequently visited wreck. And it's quite nice to be the first diver to penetrate, because otherwise you're getting everyone else's bubbles just disturbing stuff. Even on the brightest of days in the tropics, the inside of a shipwreck can be a very dark place, and you won't be able to see those sharp, solid things dangling from the ceiling unless you bring some kind of light source down with you. If you are diving in bright waters, then as soon as you head into a shipwreck, it's going to take a while for your eyes to adjust to the darkness as soon as you enter. So to avoid being functionally blind for the best part of a minute whilst your eyes adjust inside of a shipwreck, bring a torch. Bring 2 torches, in fact. As divers, we always bring 2 second stages to breathe from, just in case. We do like our redundancy as divers. But imagine what would happen if you've turned your torch on and you're a few minutes into a shipwreck and suddenly your torch goes bloop. A second torch, even a small torch, it doesn't have to be particularly powerful, will make a world of difference to get you out of that shipwreck. There are always nooks and crannies where critters like to hide in the safe, dark place inside of a shipwreck as well. So it's nice to kind of have a look and see what's going on. But yeah, try and bring a torch or 2, ideally, if you can. Wrecks decay over time, creating entanglement and injury risks. Most people don't consider sharp, rusty metal a great place to spend their time around, especially with a very wet skin that can get cut easily. It's very easy to need an appointment with your doctor for a tetanus shot if you're going around like rusty metal and stuff. Your aim inside and around shipwrecks is to not touch anything with any part of your body or your dive equipment. Looping or snagging wires and all manners of sharp metal things can just jut out at you from any angle, so do pay attention, especially when you're trying to squeeze through tight spaces, because a lot of edges around hatches are just sharp, rusty metal. Wrecks are also a magnet for ghost gear. Ghost gear is fishing lines and fishing nets that have been cut away by the fishermen because they're caught on something and they can't get it out of the water, so they just have to cut it from their boat and just let it do its thing in the water. Because fish use wrecks as shelter, they're great fishing grounds because there's lots of fish there. And any netting or fishing line that they have cut through because it's got caught on the shipwreck, it's still very able to catch and tangle things up, yourself included. So pay attention for any kind of ghost gear, give it plenty of space, and bring some cutting devices just in case to cut yourself free should you get tangled up in anything. Penetrations require strict gas and time management, especially with limited exit options. Use the rule of thirds. For penetration dives, 1/3 of your gas is for going in, another third is to get back out, and then you have the remaining third just in case, it's your reserve. Wreck penetrations are not a place for going rogue or pushing your limits. Check your gas supply when you start your penetration, and then when you reach that 2/3 of that number, turn around or start heading out. It depends if you're heading back to the entrance or another exit point. Either way, you need to start heading out. By the time that you exit, you should have 1/3 left to just allow for any incidents that may have happened on the way, and then get back up to the surface safely. Also, monitor your depth and your NDL frequently. Again, wrecks are rarely perfectly horizontal, and if it's downwards with the bow or stern, whichever, a little bit shallower and the deeper section, your depth can vary wildly just by swimming along a passage, making you a lot deeper than you think. And you don't want to exceed your ascent limit by just swimming along a passageway without thinking about, actually, I'm swimming upwards in the water column, how that can affect your depth. It will affect your buoyancy also. So remember to do frequent buoyancy checks to remain neutral inside of the shipwrecks. Just always kind of check your gear every now and then, a bit more frequently than when you're in just open water, just to be sure. Stay within your limits. Many diving fatalities happen when divers go too far too soon. There's zero shame in the diving world about this, and if you aren't qualified for it or you just don't feel it, then don't do it. If you've just got your rec cert and you're not too confident about delving 3 depths deep into this shipwreck, then just tell your buddy beforehand and you can organise a dive plan that you're more confident about. To gain experience in anything, you obviously need to do that thing, and wreck diving is something that you can grade to a certain degree. There are easy wrecks and there are challenging wrecks and kind of everything in between, and even on one particular shipwreck you can break down certain sections of that wreck, with the outside being the safest and the easiest to explore, penetrating certain open sections being fairly easy, to some of the really more challenging areas that need proper skills, experience and equipment to reach, as something that you can aspire to. But don't feel like that you have to rush there. Just kind of build your foundation, build your confidence, your experience and your equipment, and then you can aspire to go to the more challenging areas. Following on from an earlier point about not disturbing the water inside of a shipwreck, a handy skill to have inside of a shipwreck is to turn on the spot and to swim backwards without moving your hands or too much flailing in general. In fact, being able to just hover in the water, motionless, is a surprisingly difficult skill for some divers, because you don't really spend time learning it in your foundational course, just learning to be still without even little fin kicks as corrections. And when you're diving, after you're qualified in open water, you're kind of always on the move, so it's not really a skill that you practice. Point your toes and straighten your legs if you want to go backwards, and then when you flare your fins out and pull them towards your body, it just pulls you backwards. To turn on a dime, we call it a helicopter turn. Bend your knees and kind of flick your ankles just to gently rotate without big swishes of your fins, trying to turn around and just stirring everything up. You'll be surprised at how little, just tiny little flicks will actually just turn you on the spot. So if you have a look up and practice frog kicks, helicopter turns and back kicks, you can practice them all in open water, and then just take things nice and slow in shipwrecks. Don't disturb marine life, or especially remove artifacts. It's often illegal, and of course it's unethical. As I said earlier, many wrecks, people have died and their remains are still there. It also ruins it for any divers after you. If there's nothing, imagine a world where every diver before you has stripped every shipwreck of absolutely everything worth something, or like scrap money, and it's just the bare bones. In most cases, shipwrecks have owners as well, and you can't just claim something that you found as yours because, hey, it was underwater. It is not quite that easy as Hollywood movies. Things can also be dangerous. A lot of wrecks have come from wars, and they contain unexploded ammunition. In the cool dark water, which is nice and still, they're fairly stable, but if you disturb something and bring it up to the surface and then it dries out, the explosives, the little chemical things, they can get a bit explodey, so don't do that. And remember that wrecks are shelters for fish. Don't chase them around for a photo or blind them with your light by shining it straight at them for long periods. If you accidentally glance at them, that's not too bad, but remember, they're in that complete darkness, their eyes have adjusted, and now 6 or 7 divers just come through and they just shine a torch in your eye. It's not nice. You wouldn't like it if a group of people just walked through your house and just shone a blinding torch in your eyes. So try not to do that. Try and be respectful. Shipwrecks are just undeniably cool to go diving around and inside, but we always need to remain humble and recognize our skill and experience levels, and of course be honest enough to know where your limits are and stay well within them. There's nothing inside of a shipwreck that's worth risking my life or the lives of the recovery divers that they'll send into the wreck to find and recover you. So take things nice and slowly, do them properly, and ignore the kind of sneaky voice in the back of your head just tempting you to just swim in any further. So take this moment to give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful, and subscribe to the channel for more videos every week. And remember, I'll pop a link up here in the corner to that 𝐬𝐻𝐾𝐽 resort. It really will give you holiday envy if you've never been there before, so it's definitely worth taking a look. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.